The words my daughter-in-law said to me that morning still echo in my mind. You need to leave before my parents arrive. She said it casually, as if she were asking me to move a chair. I stood in the kitchen holding a cup of tea I had just made for her. For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood. Leave? I asked. Yes, just for a few days. My parents are coming, and they need the house. The house. Those words hurt more than anything else. Because that house wasn't just a house to me. It was where I had raised my son, where my late husband and I had built our life, and where I had found comfort after losing him. When my son got married, I welcomed his wife with an open heart. I helped them whenever I could. When they needed money, I helped with bills. When my daughter-in-law was sick, I cooked for her. I thought we were family, but that morning, standing in my own kitchen, I suddenly felt like a guest. Where am I supposed to go? I asked. You can stay with a friend or get a hotel. It's only temporary. A hotel. For me. In the home I had spent years protecting. I looked at the family photographs hanging in the hallway. My husband's picture was there. My son's childhood pictures were there. Every corner carried a memory. And suddenly I realised this wasn't really about her parents visiting. There was something she wasn't telling me. Instead of arguing, I decided to find out what was really happening. I asked when her parents were arriving. Tomorrow afternoon. And how long are they staying? A few weeks. I simply nodded and went upstairs. Inside my room, I sat on my bed and tried to understand what had changed. My son had been distant lately. He rarely called, and whenever I asked, he blamed work. That evening, I overheard voices downstairs. I already told her she would leave, my daughter-in-law said. Then my son's voice. You shouldn't have said that. She needs to understand that this isn't her house anymore. There was silence. Mom has nowhere else to go, my son said. She'll manage. I stepped away before they could hear me. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I took out a folder containing the property's original documents. My name was still on them. Years earlier, I had made arrangements so my son could live there comfortably after his marriage, but I had never given up ownership. I called an old friend who understood property records. A few hours later, she called me back. You're still the legal owner, she said. I closed my eyes. For the first time, I felt strength returning. Then she told me something else. Someone had recently asked about changing the property's records. My stomach dropped. Suddenly, everything made sense. The questions about my documents, the strange interest in the house, the way my daughter-in-law had repeatedly asked whether I planned to stay there permanently. She wasn't simply making room for her parents. She wanted control of my home. That evening, I confronted my son. Did you know she wanted me out? He looked down. Mom, that one word told me everything. You knew. He didn't answer. I felt something inside me break, not because my daughter-in-law had betrayed me, but because my own son had watched it happen. I trusted you, I said quietly. I know. No, I whispered. I don't think you do. I had spent years protecting my son from hardship. Now I realised I had also protected him from consequences. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I made one quiet decision. If they wanted to treat me like a stranger in my own home, I would remind them who legally owned it. The next morning, I called a locksmith. My daughter-in-law was upstairs when he arrived. I stood near the front door with my property documents in my hand. The locks were changed within an hour. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone. I did it because I finally understood that kindness without boundaries can make people believe they are entitled to take from you. When my daughter-in-law came downstairs and saw the locksmith, her face changed. What are you doing? Protecting my home, I answered. You can't do this. I held up the documents. Yes, I can. My son came rushing in. Mom, please, let's talk. I looked at him. We should have talked before you let your wife tell me to leave. He lowered his eyes. My daughter-in-law began arguing about her parents arriving the next day. I listened quietly. Then I said, your parents are welcome to visit when they are invited, but nobody gets to decide that I should disappear from my own home. For once, she had nothing to say. My son eventually apologized. It wasn't dramatic. There were no grand promises, just a quiet admission that he had allowed his fear of confrontation to damage our relationship. I didn't throw him out. I didn't try to destroy his marriage. I simply gave them a choice. Respect the boundaries of my home or find another place to live. They chose to move into a small apartment nearby. For several weeks, we barely spoke. Then one afternoon, my son came to my door alone. He stood there for a moment before saying, "Mom, I was wrong." I opened the door, he hugged me. For the first time in months, I felt like I had my son back. Our relationship didn't become perfect overnight, but we began rebuilding it slowly, honestly, and with boundaries. My daughter-in-law eventually apologized too. I accepted her apology. Not because I had forgotten what happened, but because forgiveness doesn't mean giving someone permission to hurt you again. That experience taught me something I will never forget. Sometimes the people you love will make you feel unwanted. Sometimes they'll mistake your kindness for weakness. And sometimes you have to stop explaining your worth and simply stand up for yourself. I thought changing the locks was my revenge, but it wasn't. My real victory was discovering that I could protect my peace without becoming cruel. That day, I didn't lose my family. I lost my fear of standing up to them. And sometimes that is the greatest victory of all.